All right, guys, take your seats. We're about to start the first breakout session here. So to save on time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce both the speakers, the presenters for the breakout session, and they'll just go up back to back here, and they can both have the maximum amount of time for their session. We'll start a little late here, it seems like. That's okay. I'll give you guys a break. If we were in the military, I'd give you 50 push-ups each, but I'll be nice and let you slide this time, since we are in a seminar-style setting. So we have, to begin with, Mr. Jim Barfield, who represents the Copper Scroll Project. Jim is a retired criminal investigator with multiple career positions leading up to his retirement from the fire marshal's office in 2005. That was a long time ago. I was still in Gaza at that time. He since developed a passion to decipher the famed Copper Scroll discoveries, which was found in 1952 near the Qumran caves. Jim established the Copper Scroll Project with a straightforward mission statement to help the nation of Israel recover the treasures of the Copper Scroll. So that's who's going to be our first presenter. Our next presenter, and this is, if you notice, the theme is kind of going to be very similar. That's why we have them together, is Rabbi Hershel Moskoff, who is a film producer and writer. Mr. Moskoff, Emmy Award-winning film producer and writer of the Ark Report, is a Canadian-born research analyst. His intense interest in biblical archaeology and politics has now made him a prolific contributor to several Israeli publications, an internationally acclaimed expert on the Ark of the Covenant and other hidden temple artifacts. Now, besides that, I will also add that Mr. Moskoff has just arrived from being in the United Nations, presenting some interesting conflict, how do you call it, conflict, that's the word, solutions concerning Israel, the Temple Mount, I'm assuming as well, you probably talked about, and so on. So very interesting characters. I want to give you guys full time here as much as I can. Mr. Barfield, will you please come up?
Strap in, get ready, because we got a lot to cover. There's somebody up there to handle the PowerPoint. Okay, it is the Copper Scroll Project. You're going to have to excuse my back. I usually have a computer in front of me. Chris was going to say a prayer, but I got him praying now. We're going to be a little bit rushed, and so if you got questions, please save them to the end. We probably won't have time for any. Disregard this. I found out they're going to have it all over the internet, so you're good to go. Copy whatever you want. This is what we plan to cover today. What I believe the Copper Scroll has on it, and I've had a couple of rabbis tell me that these items are the dowry for the coming of the bride. Sorry.
We need the audio for the people viewing you online.
You took 2 minutes. I'm getting another 2. It's a dowry for the coming bride. And it's important that you learn that Qumran is far more than what it is right now, just a tourist attraction. Qumran is I consider it a holy place to myself at this point. Qumran was a miniature Jerusalem in the wilderness at that time. Also, we did a powerful test at Qumran to see if there were any metals there. And ladies and gentlemen, there was a lot. Ancient mortar may seal a cave of treasures about 348 meters to the northwest of the Qumran ruin. We also found an encrypted term of endearment on the Copper Scroll. We're going to go through the disclosure, and again, hang on, because we're going to go pretty quick. copper scroll, found in 1952, about 7 feet long and 1 foot wide, has 57 locations of amazing temple treasures, if in fact they were still at Qumran. This is the facsimile that I used to decipher the copper scroll. As you can see, there are 12 columns. The last one is, the 12th column is the smallest one. And there is some significance to that, but there's also Greek letters on the copper scroll. That's where I believe there's an encrypted message for terms of endearment. Those red marks are the encryption, the groupings of Greek letters. You'll notice that's 1 through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 9, and 10 through 12. The last writer, the 5th writer on the copper scroll, because there were 5 writers, and you got to understand the copper scroll is literally a copper document that is about 1/8 of an inch thick, and that's what they used. That's what I used to figure out how to understand the copper scroll. Many of the words on the copper scroll are misspelled or spelled in the way that they did at the time, and I believe it was at the time of Jeremiah. Jeremiah, I believe, is the man that insisted on this being done because Qumran had been attacked by the Babylonians, and there were only about 100 priests left to hide and bury these items. These are the documents that confirm, or at least strengthen the possibility that the copper scroll is a real document that is used to hide and bury these treasures, what I believe are the treasures of the temple. The Apocalypse of Baruch, the Second Maccabees, marble tablets from Iraq, and the treaties of the temple vessels help validate that the copper scroll is a real document. The zealous writings. The treatise of Mechamelech is written by a rabbi in 1648. The records were written by 5 righteous men: Shemur Halevi, Hezekiah, Zedekiah, Haggai the prophet, Zechariah the son of Edu the prophet. There concealed the vessels of the temple and the wealth of the treasures that were in Jerusalem and in every place, which will not be discovered until the time of the coming of the Messiah, the son of David. May it be speedily in our time, amen, and so it will be. These are the holy vessels, the vessels of the temple. Scholars have tried to figure this thing out since 1952. Why would a guy like me figure it out? Guys, I can't tell you. But I can tell you this, there's a lot of people in Israel, including the Antiquities Authority and rabbis that believe that I have figured it out. Let's get started. Under the ruins of the Valley of Achor. This is the most important line on the copper scroll because it tells you where to begin. It tells you what to look for and where to look under. These are the things that I look for. As an investigator, you find your clues and then you go back and you search for the person that did the crime. Well, I'd worked backwards in this case. Under the ruins in the Valley of Achor. It's that simple. Why the scholars couldn't figure this out, I have no idea. But what I did that was different than I believe the other scholars did is I followed the directions. And my wife was incredibly surprised. The Valley of Achor, the 2 red lines you see on either side. Qumran, that is the only set of ruins in the Valley of Achor that I was familiar with, but I was very familiar with the ruins of Qumran. Studied the scrolls for many years before this. This is a drawing that I used. It is to scale, and it also includes a lot more detail than any other map that I've ever found. Location number 1. Would you like to see where the first set of valuables are buried at? Do not go by a shovel. They guard this place like crazy, so don't even think about it. The steps extending east. At the steps extending east, 40 cubits long are silver service vessels weighing 17 talents. What clues are we looking for? Steps extending east, they got to be 40 cubits long, and we need an area to bury about 1,275 pounds of what? Silver service vessels. Do you see any steps extending east? If you don't, let me help you because I don't have time to wait. Right there. Steps extending east. But are those steps exactly 40 cubits long? No, they're not. Here's the measurement. 19.5 meters, according to the gentleman that did the research on this, Yitzhak Magen and Yuval Peleg, very important guys. The distance was 19.5 meters. Divide that by 767 inches, you got by 19.2 inches, you get exactly 39.98. You know how short that is of 40 cubits? About a half inch. I say that's close enough because that's 62 feet, about the width of this room. There is where the location, we believe, at the steps extending east, that is the Dead Sea in the background, and it is pointing east. That's what we're looking for, silver service vessels. Location 2, 900 talents of polished gold. I want to wake you guys up. It's after lunch, and you need to stay awake for this. Take a look at this. You want to see what 900 talents of gold looks like? There you go. You think that's worth digging for? I'm going to say so. It's worth approximately $1,181,275,000 worth of gold laying there. Is it still there? Let me read what it says here. Accommodated in the built mount of the dry cistern is gold in the dry fountain of the great ruined courtyard of the peristyle. In the soft mire is hidden polished gold. How many talents? 900 talents. This is very difficult without my computer. What are we looking for? A dry cistern, the fountain, mud, a highest operation, opening at Qumran, and a large enclosed courtyard. There are 2 courtyards at Qumran. If you get a chance, go out there. I'm going to go out there. As a matter of fact, we're going to be doing a tour in May out of Israel, and we're going to go out there, and I'm going to show a lot of stuff to you people, if you want to go. 2 courtyards. Smallest one here, the courtyard Hagadol is up there. That's the one we're looking for. There's the courtyard. A courtyard, a peristyle is what they call it. It's a Greek word spelled with Hebrew letters. The courtyard is an enclosed court with high walls. The dry cistern is the blue thing coming out of the sky. That is the cistern that runs from the mountains of the cliffs to this courtyard. The fountain, remember that name because we're going to come back to it. The peristyle, again, is an open courtyard. Mud, there was mud. Ladies and gentlemen, Qumran is the driest place on earth, so there's no mud there today. The highest open is exactly where that red dot is at, and the red dot is where 900 talents of gold, I think, are buried. And the reason I think that is here's this actual spot at Qumran. See the red dot? This is the scanner that we use to test it. It's called the Lorenz Z1. The Lorenz Z1, that red and white pattern you see there, it's a zigzag pattern. The thing will penetrate down to 50 feet, and it will let you know if it's gold or steel or non-ferrous and ferrous metals. There's the result of the scan that was done. The green, guys, you can't imagine, it's as long as this room. That's how big it is, and it's about 15 feet wide, 3 meters approximately. You see L3 up there, that peak? We just went beside the 900 talents, and look at the peak we got on that thing. It's incredible how much is potentially there. I'm not going to go through all this, just know this. The red, orange, and blue, because you're going to see some more of these, are the non-ferrous metals. What is non-ferrous? Gold, brass, copper, that sort of thing. Silver. Green indicates iron or steel. Again, 900 talents of gold. Location number 3. The cave of treasures, the vessels, and the ephod of the treasury. That's what we're going to be looking for on this one. In the red heap are the wine vessels of the Gleaming Chamber, the ephod. I can't see the best of it down there. The ephod and vessels for treasure. Thank you. That's my buddy Chris helping me out. What are we looking for? We're looking for a red hill. We're looking for a cave. And The Treasury. What are we talking about when we're talking about the Treasury? That's something very interesting they're about to find out. Does anybody, this is Qumran in the springtime many years ago. Does anybody see a red heap in this picture? If you pick that, you're right. Everything that we're talking about at Qumran matches what's on the copper scroll. There are the wine vessels. We're yet to see those. We know what that is. We know what the ephod is. But what is the Gleaming Chamber? Has anybody got an idea what we're talking about? What is it in Hebrew? I can't tell you right now. I don't have the slide pulled up, and I'm not that good. That's what the Gleaming Chamber is. The Holy of Holies and the holy place. Can you imagine if you got the Shekinah glory and the menorah in there, both of them lit, what are you going to get? And why? Inside of those chambers, they're inside of polished gold. Remember, all the planks in there are coated with gold. Am I correct? You bet. Here's an interesting part. The first 3 locations at Qumran, watch this, they had a very specific intent and purpose. There's location number 1, location number 2, and location number 3. Do you see what they're doing? They're in a straight line ascending. What is the Treasury? This is Writer 1. What is he talking about? There are several names that they use in the copper scroll for the Treasury. It is the Citadel, the House of a Cause, the Treasury, the High Place, and the House of the Slanting Guard Post, Treasury. Location number 4, a double entry mikvah. I've showed this, my research, to several men, one of them being Suka Dorfman of the Antiquities Authority. When I walked in and told him what I wanted, he thought I was a nut until I got to this location. At this point, he called his men and got them on the ball, and he got Yitzhak Magen and Yuval Peleg into his office right over here across from the temple. What is that called? The Rockefeller Center. Double entry mikvah. At the double entry pool with the entrance by the north edge of the community, 6 cubits against the white immersion pool of oblation rising from the soil and goes down and to the left, and is high above the soft mire, dig 3 cubits and 40 talents of silver. What we're looking for is like a fingerprint. The ridges, the swirls, that sort of thing. That's what we're looking for. It's got to match, guys. It can't be off just a little bit. It's got to match in order for us to be able to find the things that we're looking for. On the north edge of the community, that's the absolute north end, we're looking for a pool. It has to be a ritual bath. It has to have 2 entries, double entries. It has to, whenever you enter, you have to go down and to the left. You see that pool? It's white. When you enter, you have to go down and to the left. The sides of it are exactly 6 cubits long. The entrance is over there again. This is the highest pool at Qumran, just like it requires. Highest pool at Qumran, and is also geographically, it sticks out of the ground the highest of any other pool at Qumran. And also, all the blue stuff used to be mud. This is the pool at Qumran. You see the match. Guys, it's all there. This is Shelley Neese, the writer of the book we got out there on the table. That's my buddy Chris Knight, to give you a perspective of how big this thing is. And guess what? They too named that location a ritual bath, which is a what? Mikvah. 40 silver talents. Would you like to have one of those? First one to get out there and dig them up gets one. And you also get a prison sentence. Something strange about Qumran. Pay close attention. There's something very strange about Qumran, the double entry mikvah at Qumran and the double entry mikvah at the pool of Siloam. By rotating Qumran 180 degrees, when I first saw this map, I thought it was Qumran upside down. It wasn't. Watch. Here's Qumran. What is that? Jerusalem at the time of Jeremiah. Watch. They match. Why is that? When I showed this to the Sanhedrin, the current Sanhedrin, they did and I don't mean this ugly, ooh. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. There's something incredibly special about Qumran. Again, Qumran is an inverted image of Jerusalem at the time of Jeremiah. Look at the yellow map, you'll see Qumran. At the white map, you'll see Jerusalem at that time frame. There's Qumran. Can you see the words down below? It says fountain. On this side, Jerusalem, the fountain gate. This side, the double-entered mikveh. This side, the pool of Siloam. Pool of Siloam, as it was, notice that the channel at the little museum of Jerusalem, it matches Qumran just the same way. And the fountain gate. There's a close-up of it so you can see that it actually was a double-entry mikveh. Here's the water system at Qumran. Water system at Jerusalem. The column of Boaz at Qumran. Column of Boaz in Jerusalem. Zadok's room and the high priest pool at Qumran. That location right there represents the temple. And at Jerusalem, obviously the temple. The sheep's pen, the ram's pen, sheep's pool, sheep's gate. House of the women, women's gate, and the women's tower. Are you beginning to see the match yet? Here is the Jaffa match. Here is the Jaffa gate. Here is the watchtower at Qumran. Here are the watchtowers in the time of Jeremiah. There's more. The location of the next temple. That seems the big topic here at this conference. What would you say if we had a map from the time of Jeremiah that confirmed what these gentlemen here are saying today and ladies are saying here today? Here it is. Qumran, the Copper Scroll not only gives us the locations of great amounts of temple treasures, it also gives us a map of Jerusalem at the time of Jeremiah. Do you see that? Right where the Temple Mount would be is where the column of Boaz is at, and the Zadok's room, and the high priest fountain. Recognizing the holiness of Qumran, we're going to show you some things about Qumran, that they did some interesting holy things. Location number 29, the house of Hakaz. In the spot toward the area of assembly and proclamations, dig 6 cubits from the house of Hakaz. What is the house of Hakaz? Any of you scholars in here? At the time of the temple periods, the house of Hakaz were the treasurers. What are they doing out in the wilderness? What are we looking for? We're in an open spot toward the assembly of where they do the proclamations and where they do the assemblies at. That spot should be approximately 10 feet from the corner of the treasury or the house of Hakaz. This is just to confirm it. I'm going to skip over it because I don't want to run out of time. Here is the house of Hakaz at Qumran, about 10 feet away. This is the area of proclamations and where they gathered at. That's where they buried these treasures. Now I want you to start noticing what they're burying because it's going to get more important to you. Again, the house of Hakaz. 6 judgment tithes of silver is what remains there. Location 32, the Slanting Guard Post Treasury. Now, if this one doesn't convince you, or the first one, these that I've shown you, don't convince you, this one's got to. Slanting Guard Post Treasury. Into the place from the eastern path through the broken of the house of the Slanting Guard Post Treasury. There are juice vessels near, listen to this, are the scrolls and zealous writings of Haggai by the exterior. You see that? And if I could see the rest of it, I'd read it to you. Zealous writings of Haggai. This is actually one of the Dead Sea Scrolls. This shows you how important the books of Haggai were. So what I'm telling you is that little bitty, 3-pager at the end of the Tanakh, that's not all of Haggai's writing, people. There's more. And they're waiting just at the entry of Qumran. And you have to know these things along with the covenant. You have to know the books of Haggai to become part of this community out in the wilderness. Main entry, eastern path, rubble from the broken building, slanting walls, guard post treasury, and you got the idea. There is the treasury. There's the rubble from the path. There is the entry. See the red dot? That's where I believe that the scrolls of Haggai are laying, along with all the other items. But we need 2 support stones. You see the slanting walls of the guard post treasury. But there are no support stones, are they? Actually, what those are columns. However, look at that room back in the back. See that? Do you see what's laying there inside of the room? There's a column. There's the bases of the column. There's pieces of the column all over the place. There's another base at the very back. The columns are still there. You see this? That's the scan we did. Location number L32 was exactly where the entry was. So it appears that that silver is making a signal for this to pick up. This large amount here, I'm not going to tell you about that one. Silver, that's what we're looking for. Zealous writings, that is more important to me than the silver. Zealous writings of Haggai. Location 37, the residence for anointing the prophets or the anointed prophecies, one of the two. At the edge of the broken residence for anointing the prophet, to the edge, it's 60 cubits. It's a ditch, 7 cubits deep, and it holds an amazing amount of silver. And you will find this, if you can see it, at the appointed time. But what appointed time are they talking about? What appointed time was there during the time of Jeremiah? Because they didn't do the Shemitah years? 70 years in Babylon. I think what happened was, here is 60 cubits, exactly what's required. That is the room that they're talking about for the anointed prophecies or the anointing the prophets. It's exactly 60 cubits from end to end. That's an actual picture of it. This is what we got in the scan, but you see there's only a small section of it left. What I believe happened is that after the 70 years were up, who comes back? Haggai and Zechariah. Who were the 2 writers of the Copper Scroll that we recognize? Haggai and Zechariah. What were they teaching? What were they preaching in their books? They said, build the temple. Get it built. You're living in your paneled houses. Stop and build the temple before it's too late. What are we looking for? Huge amounts of silver. Location 38, the citadel with a double ditch. 2 of the judgment offerings are concealed 40 cubits end to end. It's the breadth of the citadel. One of the names for the treasury. On the east side, dig and find the allotment of talents. Here is the citadel. You see that 2 red marks on the side of it? It's exactly 40 cubits, people. And if you'll notice, there are 2 ditches. There's an upper ditch at Qumran and a lower ditch at Qumran, end to end. And they are exactly on the eastern wall, 40 cubits. Location 45, the column of Boaz. Remember, I've been talking about this to confirm that the temple is in the right location on the Temple Mount. Called together, massing at the residence where the righteous speaks, by the sheep are 2 crown stones of proud Boaz. Our talents draw out 390 accumulation of gold atonement vessels. Chamber of Zadok, the columns and the capstones while we're looking at, and there needs to be a sheep pen nearby. Guess what? Here's a sheep's pen, there's a room of the righteous one, and there are 2 capstones still laying there today. How can this be after 400 years? And of course, that's a room of Zadok. That red dot is not on top of the walkway, it's somewhere underneath it. So if you're going to go out there and steal something, you got to go underneath. I recommend against it, though. There's a sheep's pen. How do I know it's a sheep's pen? Because there's a sign there that says sheep and goat pen. You see that? Seriously. That's what we're looking for, gold atonement vessels. Location 48, the gold vessels torn to pieces. I'm not going to read everything on this one because I don't want to run out of time. In the righteous one's garden, at the four limits, are ruined gold vessels, wine vessels, peeled and cut to pieces. Yoke, sorrowful, kept secret, behold, at the appointed time. Place of the righteous one, four corners, and it's his garden, the righteous one's garden. Here's from 2 Kings. Look what they did, what Nebuchadnezzar did to gold vessels, which were King Solomon's vessels. They cut them and tore them to pieces. Jeremiah 40 says that the captain of the guard, Nebuzaradan, gave him, Jeremiah, food and a great reward. What do you think that great reward might have been? The golden vessels cut to pieces. There's the righteous one's garden. How much time we got left? How one? Oh, you better hurry. There it is. There are the vessels. I'm going to get to the cave. We're looking for the cave again. In the great hollow entry, which involves all the wealth of the house, placed and hidden in the entrance of the north end of the red heap, there is buried by the edge is another copy of this record, declaring the scattered words and the trapped wealth. There's the heap again. There is the locations 3 and 57. Look, ladies and gentlemen, location 53, 54, 55, 56, and 57 are in a straight line. The guy, Indiana Jones, said X doesn't mark the spot. No, it's a V that marks the spot. Did you enjoy it?
Guys, there's a whole lot more information, of course. This is the speed version, the same with Mr. Moskoff. Unfortunately, we don't have time at the convention to have more time for both of these guys, but I'm telling you, you want to connect with them and check out the research because there's heaps of information.
Shalom Aleichem. First, thank you, Doron. It's a pleasure, obviously, to be here and very special. Speaking with everybody upstairs in the cafeteria. I'm Harry Moskoff, a.k.a. Rabbi Hershel Moskoff. And my work, as Doron was saying, has to do with the tunnels of the Temple Mount, the placement of the Ark and other holy vessels in Jerusalem, where they ended up. And politically, I'm also an investigative journalist writing for the Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel, and Israel Breaking Israel News, for Tully. So it's very important work that now the timing of a convention like this is absolutely crucial. And thanks to all of you, really, for showing up, for coming. It's a really a great show of support for Israel about this crucial issue about the Temple Mount. And as Mr. Barfield was saying before me, everything that's associated with it, the temple vessels, where they are, etc. We're going to show actually a little video, a short video in a couple of minutes about that and the whole geopolitical scenario revolving the Temple Mount, which is something I'm very much, I write for and I'm very much involved with right now. One of the things that I've been doing lately as an investigative archaeologist is I was asked by a working group that's connected to the Trump administration and the ambassador, a think tank that has to do with the final status for the Temple Mount. I was asked to speak, as Doron was mentioning, a couple of weeks ago at Queen's College in New York and also the UN about what to do with the Temple Mount in a final status situation vis-a-vis the peace plan. Now, whether you love him or hate him, President Trump, and I know, it's like a huge issue, obviously, everywhere. Although here in Israel, we sort of love him, basically. But the whole issue is the rollout of the plan and the people that are involved and how that's going to affect the final status of Jerusalem and in a way that people can accept. The right-wing people can accept, the religious can accept. Of course, the Christians support everybody out there, everybody here, Is very much appreciated, and also, something that the Palestinians, the Muslims, can accept, a solution. This is one of the things we've been working on for a couple months, and I'm proud to say we are very close to actually establishing something that will really work. In order to do that, we have to, and this is one of the things I spoke about an alternative solution where all of us can work together. One of the main issues is, of course, the Temple Mount and how that fits in. They asked me to come and participate because I am an author of, here it is, the Ark Report, available outside. And somebody who really knows the halachic, according to Jewish law, the ramifications of where to put a different temple, where to put a place where everybody can pray. The idea, and you may hear it here first, but don't necessarily quote me on it, but Trump does consider himself, President Trump, as a builder primarily. Trump Tower, of course, Trump University, Trump Hotels, etc., etc. And what he would like to do, rumor has it, is also sort of put his name on something that's going to be very big here in Jerusalem. Mainly something to the effect of the World Center for Prayer, Trump World Center for Prayer type of thing. And although that may be a little bit, let's say, I don't like leaking it out or anything, but this is something that he really would like to do, like Cyrus, like those coins that you saw. I don't know if everyone was here for that. When those coins were shown before, about they had King Cyrus and they had Trump, it's kind of an interesting, odd type of correlation, but still very interesting. So he does consider himself that way, and he really wants to work towards this type of scenario where everybody can really go up there to Rabbi, to the Temple Mount, and pray and worship Hashem, worship God. And I think that's what we're all here for. Thank God we're all here, and it's a great honor. And I think that what everybody represents, what we represent, coming to a convention, a conference like this, where the actual, the whole essence of it is the Temple Mount. I think that everybody here wants to draw close to God, like we were saying before, and that's why we're here, and that's what originally drew me to the whole Temple Mount, the research I did, and where the Ark is, and where the Makom HaMikdash, which is the placement of the temples on the Temple Mount, what really brought me there, and all of you, I think, as well, is just this will to get close to God. And where do you do that? The Temple Mount. That makes sense for everybody, for all human beings. So I did speak about this, and it was, I think, very well received, also by the UN in terms of a working paper, what we could do to work together with the Palestinians and get this thing going. Now, one of the things that was suggested at that meeting and different meetings, etc., and at the conference was having a Jewish place for prayer as well. In fact, I wrote an article for the J-Post, Jerusalem Post, and Breaking Israel News about this. There were actually 6 synagogues, believe it or not, on the Temple Mount since the destruction in 70 AD. 6 synagogues since then. The last one was about 1,000 years ago, but still, that really worked well. And no one got in the way of each other, the Muslims and the Jews, etc. That was actually something workable, something on the corridor, even today, there's northeastern corridor, and one of the chief rabbis, the older chief rabbi of Mordechai Eliyahu, blessed memory, he actually had plans to build a small synagogue on the southeastern corner of the Temple Mount, which was very interesting. He really did have that. He brought it to the Knesset, to the Israeli parliament, and it was really something that was being considered. I think that today it's a lot, it's obviously complicated, etc. Nobody wants to start, World War III, heaven forbid. In fact, the opposite. But it is something that is being discussed, is this aspect, this idea of having a place where all people could go. And like we say, like it says in Yirmiyahu, in Jeremiah, it says that in Hebrew, it says, Beiti yeh beit tefillah, Yakareh beit tefillah, that my house should be a house of prayer for all the nations, and that'll be the third temple. Anarina actually had a picture of that earlier. But everyone will be able to go to this spot eventually. Now, that's part of the importance to everybody. And actually, by the way, it's election season all of a sudden. Everything in Israel is unpredictable, as I'm sure you're finding out. And we're now approaching an election time, which means those of you who do go up to Rabbi, to ascending the Temple Mount, and I think Doron is going to have a tour. He's great, you know. Let's hear it for Doron. Great job, really. So if you want to go up with him, he's also a great, you'll be safe with him, security-wise. So, and otherwise, you know, so basically, those who do go up, I think that if we want to make this, practically speaking, an issue in the elections, during Hanukkah right now, it is actually a good time. Those are not advocating necessarily going up there, but, you know, maybe unofficially perhaps. But if you really want to go up there, and it is a very special experience, it's really like being on a different plane. It's very surreal, an incredible experience. And to go up there and, you know, say your little under your breath prayer. But those who do go up, in order to make a difference in the election season, I think that to make it an issue, it is a good idea now to go up, those who do ascend, and show your presence there, Jew and non-Jew alike. Very important. And by the way, Zion, you know, all these different organizations, Align with Zion, Cry for Zion, of course, comes from the word Zion, as I'm sure you know. But the word Zion itself, I should mention, is actually referring to the place of originally, in the Torah and the Bible, originally refers to the place of the Holy of Holies, where the Ark was, and where the Torah says, Kibit Zion takes the Torah, Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim, like Doron was saying, that from Zion comes out the Torah in the Ark, the scrolls that were held in the Ark in the Kodesh Kodashim, in the Holy of Holies. That's really the name of Rabbi, to the Temple Mount. The essence of Zion really refers to the Holy of Holies. And then later on it was, you know, and that's also where the Sanhedrin was, where the Torah came out of. Then later on it came to refer to other things, including Mount Zion, of course, which is where King David is buried, and other kings, by the way. So that's an interesting note. The other thing is, I've been asked to speak about one of the things that I specialize in is where the Ark of the Covenant is, why it's there, etc. Now, of course, only Eliyahu Navi, Elijah the prophet, really knows. But there are many theories. One, like Mr. Barfield said, of course, Qumran and Vendell Jones had also a similar theory. Ethiopia, so there's articles written about Ethiopia, etc. What's there, what isn't there. Now, there is a duplicate, a replica there, but the Ark itself, according to my research and many Torah sources, is actually underneath the Temple Mount, including what it says on the Rabbi, Maimonides, about 4 or 5 stories down, about 10 to 15 meters down, just to the southwest, actually, of the Dome of the Rock. And that's proven in my book through various, you know, I'd say mostly Torah sources, Midrashic, Talmudic sources, and also archaeology, recent archaeological finds in the city of David. Actually, the city of David approached me a while ago, about a year ago, to discuss this phenomenon that was mentioned earlier, where many of the tourists, thousands of tourists that come each year to the city of David, are asking, show me where the temple was, according to this new theory that's come out in the Christian world. And people are convinced that for some reason, I guess it's in terms of scriptural context, without really looking deeper, that the temples were there. I guarantee you they weren't there. They were on the Temple Mount. It's called the Temple Mount for a reason. And we have as much proof as you want, of course, in my book and elsewhere. But I was asked to say that, you know, all of the research that we've done is really, it's very important that people find out in the context of these verses that are mentioned by these people that claim that the temples were on the side of the mountain. And it's great that a conference like this can address that issue. And people like me can come and say and answer your questions and say, look, you know, this is the reason why the temples were up here, and this is the reason why it's, you know, to the southwest of the Dome of the Rock, and what is this and what is that. The Dome of the Rock actually was built on the Hadrian temple for Jupiter after the destruction in 70 AD of the Herodian Jewish temple. And then it's in conjunction with the, which is really a basilica, now the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the way they coordinate to each other, the way they're actually positioned, which is similar to a structure in Lebanon. It's the Dome of the Rock itself is actually, I think, resembles more a Byzantine church than a mosque, actually. The way it doesn't face Mecca, like all mosques do, etc. There's definitely something else going on there. And also how the Dome of the Rock was believed to be the place of the temple. That's conventional opinion, when it's actually, according to this, and according to Rav David Lau, who's the chief rabbi of Israel, who endorses this theory, my theory, and Rav Moshe Sternbach, who's the head of the judicial court in Jerusalem, also endorses this theory, amongst others now, that actually the Dome of the Rock was not the place of the temple, close by, still on the Temple Mount, but and the reasons why people became to think that. Now there are theories, it's a theory, but it's very important to know that no matter which theory you believe in, the temple itself was and will be on the Temple Mount itself. Okay, we're going to see a film in a couple minutes, basically outlining the geopolitical scenario. I worked on it with Mike Huckabee, who's a good friend of mine, and visits Israel quite a bit. And it also, talks about where the temple vessels ended up. And I think one of the issues that we have to deal with finding these temple vessels, whether it's in Qumran or under the Temple Mount, like that video earlier about Rabbi Goren. And that is one of there's actually 50 tunnels, 50, that are known tunnels under the Temple Mount today, which I delineate here in the book, etc. And 4 of them may lead to where the Ark is actually buried. One of them was shown up here, which has to do with Warren's Gate. Has anybody actually been to the Western Wall tunnels? Yes? Oh, awesome. Cool. Great. All right, that's really great, because there's a massive stone there, 570 tons, a huge stone, which is, you guys know what I'm talking about? Every tour says it. It's huge, and it's really miraculous that it went there, how they got it there. One of the reasons why it's there is because it's there to protect something behind it. Without getting into details, the chief archaeologist, Dr. Dan Bahat, who's a fellow Torontonian, conducted research a couple of years ago with the University of Calgary and Nebraska, etc. And they had special electromagnetic techniques and sonar, etc., to find out what's behind the wall, the Western Wall. And one of the things they found was behind that stone is an actual open space, which he called a storage space, that may be connected to something that may be hidden there a little bit further, a little bit lower, but essentially close to that area. And Warren's Gate itself leads to a cistern. There's a cistern behind it, cistern number 30, I believe, as Sir Charles Warren delineated about 150 years ago. So there are cisterns, there are tunnels under there, and there are caves nearby, definitely, that are incredibly important, incredibly worth exploring. I'm totally into this, as you can see. And it's one of them, actually, one of these tunnels goes 18 miles, like it says in Divrei Yamim, which is Chronicles. The last king, Tzidkiyahu, King Tzidkiyahu actually escaped during this tunnel. It's 18-mile long tunnel to the plains of Jericho, which many say correspond to Qumran. And that he actually, when he was escaping at the destruction of the first temple, King Solomon's temple, he actually went under there, and it says his story, and he was found, and there was a deer, and he was found by the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar, etc. But the fact is, there is a theory that says that he brought a lot of the vessels out through that tunnel, and it exits in Qumran, which is connected to the Copper Scrolls, which is also mentioned in the film here and there. At any rate, it is a huge issue that's coming out now. I also have an excavation coming up. You can follow on my website. I don't know if I should just a blatant plug for it, but it's harryhmoskoff.net. At any rate, we do have an excavation coming up in Jerusalem that has to do with the whereabouts of these temple vessels, God willing. We have all the permits, etc., and we also found a tunnel underneath the Temple Mount where the priests, my own ancestors, actually went through, like it says in the Talmud, when they had an impurity, they went through this tunnel, and it exited on the south side where the Hulda gates are, double and triple gates. And you can see that it's way off. Definitely don't go there. Don't even try to go there. But suffice to say that the exit really is there into a ritual bath, and where the Kohanim, the priests, used to go. That's one incredible tunnel that was found actually in 1982 by an archaeologist, Meir Ben-Dov. You can read about that in his book, Shadow of the Temple. But it really is an unbelievable find that exists today. And of course, highly secured, but very, very important that these things are being found. And we really are at the end, in my opinion, right before Mashiach. We're all waiting for the Messiah to come. And he will soon, God willing. And this is one thing that's extremely important. And I think that even the Arabs realize this. Even the Muslims realize that things are coming to an end. Things are coming to a closure. And that's why we can have a conference like this with everybody involved. And a peace plan, I guess you could say, that people may think that actually might work. One of the things that I'll mention about this peace plan is that they really want to make Har HaBayit, they want to make the Temple Mount into a place where all people could go, where Muslims can feel comfortable with the Jews in their area, and no one will infringe on anyone else. And they call it the Holy Basin. They want certain things they want to internationalize, etc. The way I want to see it happen, the way it will happen eventually, will be like it says in Yechezkel, in the prophet Ezekiel, I think it's chapter 40, Mem to Mem Gimel in Hebrew. But he talks about, of course, the third temple, and that'll be a huge, huge temple, much, much larger than the current Temple Mount size. And we're going to see some great, great, miraculous things happen. We really have a merit, I think, to live in this generation. No question, as hard as it may be, and, birth pangs of Mashiach, like they say, of the birth pangs of before the Messiah comes, there are a lot of troubles. Before great light, there's usually great darkness. In fact, it says, it's a fact that before the dawn, the darkest time of the night is right before the dawn. So keep that in mind. We're hanging in there. And one of the things that I think that I'll just mention before showing the film is, I have a little bit of time, is one of the main things that we're dealing with is who will own the archaeology. Say we find this stuff. Say we find the Qumran, the vessels in Qumran, which will happen one day, hopefully soon. And, say we find what's under Har HaBayit. It says in the Gemara, in the Talmud, that the vessels of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, are hidden in the underneath the Temple Mount, as well as the Ark. But that's one of the things that, there are different theories, but the curtains, it says, and the wooden blocks, the wooden boards for the tabernacle are actually hidden also in the Temple Mount. All of these things are going to come to the surface. And I've been sort of researching and I would say chasing, but Indiana Jones style, but the bottom line is that these facts are coming out, and these vessels really do exist today. They really do. The Ark itself is there for 2,700 years in the same place, in a chamber. So, when these things do come out, the question is, who will own it? And I say that at the end of the film. Who's going to own it? Where will it be found? Is it going to be on one side of the red line, one side of the green line? And everyone believes and knows it belongs to Israel. But within Israel, we don't, there's also infighting, unfortunately. Like they say, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, So that's something that we have to grapple with. Really, once these things are found, who will own it? Where will they go before the temple is created? Smithsonian Museum for the Ark or something. Who knows? We want it to be in the temple, which it will end up. However, we all have to really want it. Everybody here, it's sort of like preaching to the converted in a way. Everybody here wants it just by nature of the fact that you're here, and me included. But we have to get it out there, and one of the ways of doing that is to make it an election issue, show your love for Har HaBayit, for the Temple Mount, go up there and write about it, write it to your congressman, write to your senator. I'm losing my voice over here. But mainly in Israel over here, we have to support some of the things that are being done here. And there are a lot of archaeological discoveries happening. The Akra, was recently found about a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago, in the city of David, which is a Greek fortress made by Antiochus, ironically, Chanukah infamous Antiochus, the Greek king, which the Maccabees defeated, thank God. So he was actually built this really monstrous fortress, which it says was a real thorn for all the Jews. It actually was sitting in the southern slope of Ir David, of the city of David, and overlooked in order to supervise what's happening in the temple complex. The fact that it was found where it was found and knowing the height of it proves that actually the temple was a little bit further to the south, and not actually where the dome is, which, by the way, if you're going with Duran, it actually affects, if you're Jewish, it does affect where you go. You hang a little more to the south side. I think all people are able to move around pretty much. Duran knows where to go. So bottom line is that it does have implications, all these discoveries, to what we do today and how things the future is going to look. I think that we're pretty much ready for the film. If anybody has any questions, of course, I'm around. I think there's a panel at 6:45 also that I'm taking part of with respect to biblical archaeology. But yeah, let's see if we could have the film. I'll try to speak a little bit in between, maybe.
What we have in the Middle East is a Palestinian Authority regime that doesn't even believe that Israel has a right to exist, that will not even put the geographical borders of Israel on its maps.
Right.
Every time I take a big group to Israel, one of the things I like to do is to get one of the Palestinian maps that I can get in the old city. I love to unfold it, and I'll ask the people who are with me, where's Israel on the map? They'll look, and they'll look, and I'll say, can you find Israel on the map? The answer is no, they can't find it. And I ask them why. They say, I don't know. I said, because the people who built this map, they don't believe there is such a thing as Israel.
They claim we have no history here, that the temples never existed. But what if I were to tell you where the secret location of the temple treasures, King Solomon's treasures, are actually located? What would happen then? No one has ever cracked the code. No one has ever seen the map. Until now. There's a fascinating account from 100 years ago about a Jewish farmer in the Jerusalem area who was working on his land. Suddenly, he fell into a deep cave. When he got himself together, he saw an amazing collection of gold temple vessels and coins appearing in the light. The farmer realized he had discovered King Solomon's temple treasures, hidden on his very own property. He quickly covered up the entrance to the pit and then created a map of its location. The farmer traveled to America and entrusted the secret map to Rabbi Herman of New York. After verifying the story, he sent it to the famous sage, the Chafetz Chaim in Poland, about what to do with these holy temple treasures. Should he take them out and reveal them to the world? The sage responded that we weren't ready for these holy artifacts yet, and destroyed the map. Many years passed, and the secret location of the cave was all but forgotten. Eventually, the farmer died, and Rabbi Herman suddenly remembered the story and the secret location of the farm and the cave. The clues and coordinates that are on that very map have been passed on to this day, and the time is arriving to finally reveal them.
This is part of what we're dealing with today, finding these treasures.
People love a good story, and the Palestinian narrative is a great story. The Palestinians love media, and their story is that there never was an Israel,
This has to do with the
or a
UN.
temple for that matter. They use
UN
this
resolution
propaganda to
that
fuel their
denies all
constant
Jewish
violence and to
claims
try and take ownership
to Jerusalem
over
and the
ancient
Temple
Jewish
Mount.
holy sites as their own. Why are the brave soldiers of the IDF prepared to lay down their lives on a daily basis to protect these holy sites? What's the point? Just to be given back and destroyed by the Palestinian Arabs?
What irritates me more than anything else is you'll hear Palestinian leader after Palestinian leader say that they don't recognize any Jewish claim to the Temple Mount at all.
And Arafat himself is on record claiming that the Jews have gotten, there was no such thing as a Jewish temple in Jerusalem, despite the fact that it's recognized in the Quran.
If there was no Israel and no temples, then why have there been so many archaeological discoveries that prove the exact opposite? Especially recently on the southern slope of the Temple Mount.
You cannot say that there are no remains and then at the same time prevent any excavations. Let me excavate at the Temple Mount and I'll show you the proof.
How do you negotiate with people who don't think you're there? How do you make concessions how do you have agreement with people who do not believe you have the right to breathe your next
This
breath?
is the challenge of the peace process.
Israel saw another surge in terror attacks this morning.
They're starting here with the Jews who live in the Middle East. And why they do not like us? Because they look at us, a democracy. They look at the values where we have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and they don't like what they see.
I can't bring myself to believe that we will be sort of driven back into the dark ages of people being slaughtered. I can't see this, in modern day, I can't see this happening.
I have to make sure that the future of the Jewish state is safe and sound. That's my one goal. And I would like to be remembered as the protector of Israel. That's enough for me. Protector of Israel.
So why is there such an obsession to either find or deny the existence of these temple vessels? What is so significant about their discovery that the Arab media, the left, and even the CIA had an agenda to track excavations in Qumran and keep it all hidden there?
Why isn't the international community up in arms? Why do they seem to be not taking this seriously?
I believe that uncovering that farmer's cave now would seriously affect the sovereignty of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount, shifting the status quo permanently in favor of Israel.
Every archaeological find is important, and I absolutely believe in archaeology. I'm fascinated by it and have been my whole life. Things like the Dead Sea Scrolls, changed the whole way that people thought about Israel and the Bible and the world. And I think that was a real game changer.
We are facing part of the stronghold that used to house the upper part of the city of David in the time of Antiochus IV.
One of the great things about archaeology is that it has never controverted a biblical truth. It's always affirmed it. Archaeology is one of the best friends truth ever will have.
As it says in the Copper Scrolls, the temple treasures were ordered to be placed in that cave by the prophets before the destruction of Jerusalem almost 3,000 years ago. We now know where that farm is located today. The clues and the secret map are all here, and the path lies before us. The solution to stopping the terrorism and guaranteeing the future of Israel lies on that map and revealing what's in that cave. But who will be the one to actually go in after it?
Archaeology
The Chief Rabbi of Israel? The Israeli Antiquities Authority? The Jordanian Waqf? The Prime Minister? What about the CIA? Or the Pope? Or maybe, just maybe, it's up to you.
That's each one of us. Thank you.
All right, guys, we got a little over here, so we're going to have a break until 3:30, and we'll reconvene here in the main hall. Thank you.